I'm so excited to tell this story. I could barely sleep last night. Usually, we're here talking about heartbreak and double lives, but today is about a massive, beautiful, glorious victory. Let's say you have a best friend since university. She's the person you trust the most. She's deeply involved in her church. She's always talking about sisterhood and decency. And you've always seen her as a moral compass. So when she hits a rough patch, you do what a good friend does. You open your door, you give her the key, you tell her, my home is your home. You think you have been a good Christian. You have no idea that while you are at work, she is in your bedroom, trying on your wedding ring, and whispering lies to your husband that will make your skin crawl. I know you're probably thinking, oh, I know where this story is going. She's going to snatch her husband, they're going to kick her out of the house, blah, blah, blah. But trust me, you couldn't be more wrong. Because this story has a twist you can never imagine. Let's talk about Sarah and Mark. Names have been changed as usual. They live in a beautiful suburb of London. Sarah is a project manager. She's smart, she's logical, she's successful, and Mark is a high school teacher. He's calm, he's thoughtful, he's not flashy, but he's dependable in the way that matters. They have been married for 8 years. They weren't one of those couples posting captions about my king and my forever best friend every Tuesday while going at each other's throats at home. But what they had was real, just solid. They loved each other, they trusted each other, and they had built a quiet, stable life. Then there's Chloe. Chloe and Sarah had been best friends since they were 19. Chloe was the churchy one. She never missed an opportunity to tell people about what God was saying. She led prayer circles, mentored younger women, quoted scriptures with the confidence of someone who knew nobody in the room was going to challenge her interpretation. She had credibility and she knew it. Take note of that. Because people are much more dangerous when they understand how trustworthy they look. Recently, Chloe filed for divorce. She told everyone, including the church elders, that her husband was a serial cheater who couldn't keep his house to himself. Because of her influence in the church, the entire community turned against her husband. She was on the verge of winning the divorce and getting almost everything he had worked for. So when Chloe called Sarah, crying and saying she needed somewhere safe to stay while she got back on her feet, Sarah did not hesitate. She told Mark they had to open their doors for her.
Chloe is a woman of God. Let's give her the guest room until she's back on her feet.
Mark agreed because he trusts Sarah's judgment. What they didn't know was that they had just let the she-devil into their house. At first, it was subtle. So subtle, Mark almost convinced himself he was imagining it. Little things. Chloe lingering too long in a conversation when Sarah left the room. A hand on his arm that stayed a second too long. A softness in her tone that felt just slightly too intimate for someone calling herself your wife's sister in Christ. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would not make you sound ridiculous if you spoke about it. Then it escalated. Chloe would accidentally forget to lock her bedroom door so that Mark would stumble in on her cleaning up. She would walk into the kitchen in just a long t-shirt and no underwear when Mark was making coffee in the morning and Sarah had just left for work. Mark would look away, feeling awkward, but he didn't want to bring it up to Sarah yet. He knew how much Sarah respected Chloe, and honestly, He didn't want to sound like he was the one looking at her friend. You know how we women get sometimes, right? He was also deeply confused. See, this was the same woman who every night would encourage Mark and Sarah to join her in singing and praising God. Mark didn't have any religious affinity himself, but he appreciated her zeal. He thought, there's no way this woman who sings so passionately to God is trying to seduce me. I must be over imagining and probably just being paranoid. He chose to ignore his gut because her spiritual performance was so convincing. A few days before Sarah was scheduled to leave for a business trip in Manchester, she actually ran into Chloe's husband at a local shopping center. And what he said to her that day should have been the eye opener she needed. He looked broken. He stopped Sarah and he tried to speak to her. He said, Sarah, please listen to me. Chloe is not who you think she is. She's using the church to ruin my life. Be careful having her in your home. And Sarah, already convinced she knew exactly what kind of man he was, shut him down immediately. She scolded him for quitting the church and told him to stay away from a woman of God. She defended her friend fiercely and walked away. She would remember that moment with deep burning shame just a few days later. So Sarah leaves for Manchester. She's supposed to stay 3 days. It was a standard work trip, and that was when everything cracked open. According to Mark, Chloe changed the moment Sarah's flight took off. That same evening, she sat him down with calm certainty. She told him she had been praying about whether to say anything, but she could not, in good conscience, let him remain deceived. Then she told Mark that Sarah had been having an affair, that the business trips were cover, that there had been someone at work for months, that she had struggled with whether to expose it, but God will not let her stay silent. And then she said something that made Mark understand exactly what kind of game she was playing at.
You deserve a wife who is as faithful as you are.
Mark smiled back at her, cupped her face, and said,
Finally, I was wondering when you'd stop dancing around me.
With that, Chloe was completely unhinged. She melted into his hold and she began blabbing about how she had always loved him and how they would be a perfect pair and how they would strategically kick her best friend Sarah out of the house. What she didn't see was Mark opening the recorded app on his phone. Meanwhile, Sarah was in her local room in Manchester, reviewing notes for the next day when her phone beeped. An audio file from Mark. No explanation justified. She presses play and hears Chloe's voice. And for 3 minutes, Sarah listened to her best friend begin offering herself to her husband like she's presenting him with a better replacement. Sarah said she did not cry. She could not. She just sat there, very still, and listened until the recording ended. She played it again and again and again until her brain finally caught up to her. And it dawned on her that she had left her home open not to a woman of God aiming for the things of the Lord, but to a crazy witch aiming for her husband. Then she booked the next available flight back to London the next morning. Sarah walked into her house exactly at 10 a.m. Chloe was sitting at the island in one of Sarah's borrowed rooms, drinking coffee like she belonged there. Mark was standing beside her. Before she could ask why Sarah was back so early, Sarah pulled out her phone, pressed play, and let Chloe hear herself. Chloe went white immediately. She turned to Mark and asked if he had recorded her. And Mark finally said what he had been holding back the entire time. He told her no sensible man rejects a woman like her without backup. He knew that she could twist the narrative and make him the villain if he did so. Because in that moment she came onto him, he understood something very quickly. A woman who knows how to weaponize moral credibility is not someone you confront casually. You document. Mark had already seen what Chloe was doing to her husband in public. He had watched a whole community accept her version of events because she knew how to package herself as the safer person to believe. So Mark did the smart thing. He let her talk and he recorded everything. Chloe begged them not to release the recording because if that recording got to her husband's legal team, her divorce case would collapse in his favor. Her church standing would collapse. Her credibility would collapse. Her life would collapse. Chloe packed and left with her head bowed in shame. But the story isn't over because this situation has sparked a massive fight between Mark and Sarah that actually triggered her reaching out to me in the first place. Mark wants to send the audio recording to Chloe's husband and his divorce lawyers. Mark says that man is losing everything he worked for because of her lies. We have the proof that she is a manipulator and a liar and a cheat. It is our moral duty to clear his name. But Sarah is torn. Sarah is dealing with incredibly guilt because she didn't hear that man out. She feels terrible. But she also knows that if they release that audio file to the court, it will become public record. It will completely nuke Chloe's life. The church will excommunicate her, she will lose all her assets, and she will be utterly ruined. Sarah told Mark, she's out of our house. We won. Why do we have to be the ones to destroy her completely? Let God handle it. Mark told Sarah, if we hide this evidence, we are helping her destroy an innocent man. And this is where the story stops being about betrayal and becomes about responsibility. Sarah's hesitation is human. It is hard to press the button that drops a nuclear bomb on someone who used to be your best friend, even after they betrayed you. So now I want to ask you, if you were Sarah, what would you do? Do you let Chloe go scot-free and thank God she failed in your house? Or do you send that recording to the lawyers to help clear an innocent man's name and accept that Chloe's life will collapse under the weight of what you exposed about her? Meanwhile, I want to say bravo to Mark. Chloe completely underestimated your self-discipline and the love you have for your wife. Thank you for proving that contrary to popular belief, not all men think with what is between their legs. If you have a story of your own, send it to the email on the channel homepage. It's free, it's private, and names and identifying details will always be changed. I'll see you in the next one. Protect your home.